Blast off.
Thanks. Now I have to cut that.
That's all right.
Welcome to the very first edition of our 10 for 10 discussion series. These are going to be 10 discussions about the first decade of WDWNT.com, each focusing on a particular topic. Our first topic is going to be something that's no longer a part of WDWNT, and that is our magazine, which was a part of what we were doing here for a few years. So in order to talk about the magazine, we've brought on a couple of people who are instrumental to the creation of that, I guess you could say, publication. It's weird to say publication because it was digital for the most part, although people could buy print magazines. But nonetheless, Patty Granger is joining us. Hello, Patty.
Hello, everybody.
Jason Diffendahl.
Hey, howdy, hey.
David Smith.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
Ben Harris.
Howdy, folks.
And Ron Deanna.
Aloha.
So WDWNT, the magazine, I guess the funny thing with all these is most of them come from my idea. So I guess I have to lay out the framework of how we got into this, because none of you ever willingly get into these things. It's more like Tom comes in and like,
yeah, hey, we're not here willingly right now, in fact.
Accurate.
Send help.
So at the time, magazines were a way more relevant thing within this community. There were several around. I think Laughing Place was even still around at the time, and they did a really fantastic printed publication.
That was beautiful.
I loved that. Yeah, beautifully made, wonderful thing. But I think they were about to stop, and I think we knew that. That or they'd become very infrequent. One of those two things was happening. And then there were other magazines out there. There was the Celebrations magazine, not to be confused with WDW Celebration. And then
which existed before the magazine, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely it did. Maybe we should have went after them instead of the other way around, right? And it's a story for another show. And there are several others. And I think my problem with them was a lot of people were number one, charging for a printed magazine. I didn't understand why people were making printed magazines in a time when print was going out of style. Like, if you could read a publication in digital form, why produce a printed form? I mean, certainly I understand some people like that, but it certainly seemed to be less than people who wanted it digitally. So I didn't necessarily understand all these print only at the time were print only publications. And on top of that, I just thought we had a really large staff, and I thought we could pull it off. And the idea was we were doing Who Wants to Be a Podcaster, where we had 10 people fighting to be on the podcast on a regular basis. And there was going to be 8 people there that we had already deemed knew their stuff. The question was, were they fit for airtime? But we knew those other 8 people would be valuable and could contribute somewhere. And so the idea was, well, if there's 8 people that aren't going to win and be on the show, then what would we do with those 8 people? Well, why don't we could have them write stuff? And back then, the website didn't post a whole lot of things like that. We kind of kept the website strict news stories. And so the idea was, well, we could probably do our own magazine, and it'd be digital only, and it'd be once a month. And that was my idea. And I remember, I don't remember when the meeting was. I know we launched the magazine. The magazine was one of the big things of the often made fun of 1111 thing. Because we were coming out of the walkout in the fall of 2010, where a number of people had left. And then we were talking about basically relaunching WDWNT in January of 11. And one of the biggest announcement, I would say, was that we were going to do this magazine. And I know I don't remember when we had the first meeting. Maybe someone else remembers. I think as early as September, October, I think we were sitting down talking about the first issue already. No? That sound familiar?
I feel like it was October, mid to late October is when we had that initial meeting. And I remember going into that meeting, not quite sure what we were going to try to do with the magazine. We didn't really have a staff developed. We didn't have positions for the staff developed. We just knew we had this concept that Tom had thrown out there. And, as is usual, Tom said, I have this idea. You guys go execute it and figure out how to do it. And that's what we did on the initial meeting.
That does sound like me.
Sounds exactly like you.
Yeah, usually, I mean, that's what used to happen. And I mean, that's still what happens is I come up with something crazy and I'm like, hey, we should do this crazy thing. and then you guys make it happen with some prodding on my behalf, but it eventually happened. That being said, I'm really impressed that there are not a whole lot of projects where we have that many months between the initial idea and when I want to debut it. It doesn't happen very often, especially that's very early in the website's existence for me to have planned out something so far in advance. So I'm very impressed with myself that I thought something out that far. And although I probably wanted to launch earlier, and probably everybody pushed back and said, no, we're not going to be ready for that. That's probably what realistically happened. And I don't remember, when did we launch the first issue? I don't even remember. Was it February then? Or?
I have.
Oh, you have the first issue. Look at that.
Oh. From March of 2011 here.
I ordered some physical copies too. They were pretty neat.
Yeah, I had to, once I saw what the discussion was going to be about, I had to pull out my stack. My husband was like super impressed. He's like, wait a second, I had to move that? But yeah, I actually have a pile of them.
Again, because there's something really interesting going on in that cover I want to talk about. Look at all those logos for things that no longer exist.
All those websites I made that don't exist
Disneyland
anymore.
News Today, the Pincast, Vinylmation Station,
Fantasyland Today.
Is Fantasyland Today on there? Or no?
I don't think it's on there, but that was one of the ones I made and then like died really fast. So
yeah. So what was that? What was the first issue then? March.
Yeah.
Yeah. So March of 11. We ended up doing that first issue. So as far as I got the thing off the ground, it was my idea, but it was one of the first projects ever, I think, in our history where I kind of just let people, other than Disneyland News Today, where I kind of just let people go off and do it. And I kind of trusted the people we had put there. Obviously I went to all the meetings and everything, but I really wasn't a driving force. I, for the most part, had an article in every issue, but other than that, I mean, I just kind of proved the ideas, and then we had a editor-in-chief, I believe was the title there, and that was kind of a rotating door for the early time, because David, you were not the first editor-in-chief of the magazine.
No, he was not.
No, I mean, I had thrown the idea out there, but I didn't think I'd have the time to put into being the editor-in-chief. Yeah. So I'm actually trying to find the first issue to find out who we did put it. It was Josh Stern was the first.
Yeah, Josh Stern, who mysteriously vanished a couple months into the magazine. And David, did you take over for him? We had two editor-in-chiefs in the.
There was an. I think there was.
I thought there was an interim. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember I was basically doing the role, if not in title, certainly.
Because Josh just kind of vanished, but everybody just kept going.
Kept going, right?
You know, I think said a lot for how much people cared about the product, which is cool,
right?
So I got a couple other people in here. So Ben, Ron, what did you guys do for the magazine? Just writing, editing. What were you guys doing?
Yeah, most of what I ended up doing was just editing. I've started by kind of just reading the magazine online and seeing like just a couple things here, a couple things there that I kind of wanted to just tweak. Sent in a couple letters, and eventually they just came back and was like, "Hey, do you want to just help us edit these?" I'm like, "Yes."
I do remember those emails being brought up in a meeting. We should just hire. I think Jason's the one that said we should just hire this guy to edit. If I remember correctly.
And I had started off as a writer, and I think I ended up as the last editor-in-chief as the magazine died and just got incorporated into the site as day-to-day articles.
Yeah. Which was basically Tom killing the magazine, but we'll get to that later, I suppose. But I want to talk about so with the magazine, I think one of the big problems we had with the other publications out there was mainly Celebrations comes to mind, but they're all kind of guilty of it. I thought a lot of them, other than Laughing Place, were kind of shoddily put together. Like they kind of picked a template, and almost every page in the magazine was that template, and we didn't like that. And I really wanted this to be pretty. Like I didn't want us to go halfway on any of the design elements. And that's where Patty came in. Although Patty, you weren't the only person doing layout on the magazine though.
No, actually we had Sarah help us out for a little bit. She did a lot of dining articles.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, she helped out a bit.
Patty thumbing through the mag.
I know. I'm like, I don't even remember. It's so long ago. I can't.
Can people still get them digitally? Are they still available somewhere?
I just downloaded one.
Oh,
Yeah, David
Yeah.
found the link because I was trying to remember where it was MagCloud we had stuff on. So I guess they still exist.
they're
We
still
should
there.
grab all the PDFs and put them on this site somewhere.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
Patreon.
Jason, they are somewhere, aren't they?
What? The
The
PDF?
links? I remember at one
you can
point
always
we had
trust
like
Jason.
a whole.
There's no way that the podcast archive is completely demolished currently.
The podcast archive mostly works a little.
Sure.
I don't know. I know we have a lot of the articles on the site. I don't know. Once Tom finishes the list of things he's got for me right now, then
you
maybe
act like that's ever going to be a thing.
yeah, maybe by 2019 I'll have links to the magazine somewhere.
Star Wars land.
I feel like they're there. They're just buried.
Talk,
should've-
Patty, can you talk about the time commitment? Because the magazine, I don't think people understand. Like, we talk about the Christmas podcast parade being time consuming, but apparently the magazine was probably second, if not neck and neck with the parade as far as production time.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real process because we actually kept up on, I think pretty much every single month we released an issue. So, and we would have people writing the articles, and then they had to go through the editors, and then they came to me, and we had to do all the page layout. So it was a really, really quick turnaround time. Like, I do remember staying up a lot and like doing a lot of last minute layouts to try to hit the deadline to get it out the door. And there are some like real, I don't know if you guys can tell, like these are kind of, you really can't, but
I mean, the first issue
They're
was 76
thick.
pages.
like that's like,
we went
can you imagine-
hardcore on the first issue, yeah.
Oh
Because
yeah.
everybody wanted to be a part of it, and we had a ton of writers. And needless to say, people slowly drifted away. But I think
Yeah.
we ended up, most of them ended up being around 50 pages after.
Yeah,
that.
they were averaging about 50
Yeah.
per issue. So in my
Yeah,
mind, it was like
56.
doing a parade every month.
right. Because you have to keep up with people. We had to have
Yeah.
meetings. We had to remind them.
And we were doing this volunteer. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
now we're just starting to get in the realm of paying employees here. You got to remember, back then money wasn't even a thought. We weren't charging for the magazine; it was completely free, and everybody on staff was just volunteering out of love for what we were doing, which I think is a huge testament. And the magazine went on for a while. Like, it's not like it was a blip on the radar. We went at it for quite a while.
Yeah, in fact, it was funny. I was reviewing some of the old emails I sent out to potential writers, and that was one of the first comments I would always make was, there is no plans and no process for paying anybody for this. This is a purely voluntary effort. So, I made that very clear to everybody up front, and I was still amazed by the number of responses we got. I mean, that first wave of writers coming in, I probably went through 35 different applications and trading emails with all of them. So it was quite a process, but everybody was willing. I think the hard part was getting them to stick around and keep doing it.
Yeah.
So usually, a lot of people would do 1 or 2 articles and then drift off because life interfered. And so we had to constantly be recruiting new writers to keep the content going.
I mean, and that's sort of a thing that, we realized over time, and that's why the staff was often so big, is because we never knew when people were going to just vanish for the most part. Getting people to stick around is tough, although most of the people in this section are people that have been around at this point. But
Tom, you're breaking up a bit.
see,
No, it's Nick's fault.
because typing, that's why. For the 30 or 40 people that are currently on staff, I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who have come through the door at WDWNT, did 1 or 2 things and left. I mean, it might even be in the thousands at this point. 'Cause
I
again,
don't think it's in the
basis,
thousands. You're ridiculous.
It's very possible. It's
You're
over
ridiculous.
1,000. What do you mean I'm ridiculous?
Thank you,
It's
Jason.
not 1,000. I mean, I'm
We
looking
had
at.
almost 100 people on staff at one point.
Look, I've never deleted a Skype contact, and I have maybe 200 Skype contacts right now.
Why not everyone was a Skype contact?
Well, how do we have meetings then?
Now we have meetings. I don't mean like in the last year.
But even
what I'm saying was we've
in the
had
10
meetings on
years.
Skype in 10 years. We've always had meetings on Skype. Every meeting we've had was
Not
on Skype.
everybody was a Skype person.
No, but most of them were for the meetings.
What meetings? I love how you keep bringing up meetings.
we
We
had
had
meetings.
You're
Yeah.
confusing. Oh, for the magazine, maybe.
Uh-huh.
but
even-
But I mean, not just the magazine. I'm talking 10 years total. All the people who applied for podcasts or writing or wanted to do anything with the website. There's a lot of people who worked here for 5 minutes or agreed to work here, and then I never heard back from them. That happens a lot when you deal with volunteer. It's funny. I actually just got an email from someone about volunteer employment as I'm talking about it. Yeah, I mean that happens a lot. So I was always surprised with the magazine that we kept a sizable staff there even till the end. And I think what kind of made people run away was at the end when we just kind of went and said, "Oh, they're going to be on the site," which for some reason made everybody stop writing.
Yeah, there was a bit of a drop off when that happened.
Well,
It's really
there was a drop-off.
unfortunate.
Everybody went away.
There was a bit of a major drop off.
Yeah, as in the whole thing incinerated at that point.
Well, it's basically what happened. You wanted
Yeah.
to get rid of the magazine, so we
Well,
did.
it wasn't getting rid of it. I think in the end, the reasons why we decided, well, I don't want to get into the end of it. We're still talking about producing the thing. So I want to talk about if anyone wants to bring up any particular stories or memories of the magazine, personal accounts of things that happened or work they did they're proud of, whatever it might be. I'll open the floor to that now.
I know that when we launched the magazine and we were thinking of starting, I actually was on a work trip to Disneyland Paris. Well, no, I was on a work trip to Paris, and I made a side trip for a day to Disneyland Paris. And so I thought that would be a great article for the inaugural issue of the magazine. And that was really neat because basically I only spent a day in Disneyland Paris, but what I was able to do was put together a really detailed trip report, which at this point, if you asked me what I did, I wouldn't remember 90% of it. But because I wrote that article, it was like a really detailed, moment by moment history of what I did for my first day ever in Disneyland Paris, which is still pretty cool to me. To be able to have that as a memory. So for me, I thought that was like a perfect article. I had some great pictures because it ended up snowing that day in Paris, which it doesn't really do very often, even in the winter. So I had some really awesome pictures to go with it, and it was just a lot of fun to write that. And then even today, go back and look at it again and sort of relive the day that I was in Paris.
Yeah. I had a kind of similar thing where I wrote exactly one article for the magazine, and it was on the one time I went to Disney, and in the same trip got stuck in the Tower of Terror after midnight, and then completely unrelated got upgraded to the vice presidential suite at Boardwalk. And that has some great pictures, some great memories, some great stories in there. And I wouldn't remember it nearly as well if I hadn't written it down.
One thing I want to bring attention to as I was going through some of the back issues earlier in prep for this, issue 9. So this is November 2011. Tom Corliss does an article about Avatar because the Avatar the Avatar deal had just been announced.
I'm really worried about this article now.
No, it is very balanced. But just one comment that I thought was very funny was towards the end, the line is, consider that if Disney started to work today, any new edition would probably not be ready until 2013.
Oh, boy.
I mean, that's valid. I mean, 2-year construction cycle from 2011, but they still designed until Camp Mini Mickey closed in early 14. I mean, it we had some time there, but we didn't know how long they were going to take. We didn't know they weren't even in the design phase at that point.
Yeah.
So they literally signed the paperwork and made the announcement. Yeah.
Right. But I think that illustrates that one of the reasons that I want to hold on to these magazines is because it is a great way to look back at a lot of the historical events that occurred during that time frame, maybe even before. One of the visions I had for the magazine was really to model it after that old magazine, the E-Ticket. Some of you may be familiar with that, and being able to dig into those and really use that almost like a printed form of Back to the Futures that we do, and being able to have that record and that documentation on hand is really something special that I like to keep them close.
Yeah, the majority of the articles I ended up doing, I know I did some shorter pieces that were like monthly reoccurring, like past attractions and things like that. But I vaguely remember writing the Avatar, but I really, really remember writing the Star Tours piece. So when Star Tours: The Adventures Continue debuted, I think I wrote a pretty long piece on just the whole experience and maybe even some of the development. I think somebody else, David, you might even done the history piece on like old Star Tours that I think ran alongside it or something like that. I don't even remember, but I remember that Star Tours piece took several days to write. It was a real behemoth, and then we set like a word count. We wanted to do like 5,000 words or something crazy like that because it was the cover article, and it was really fun to do because I think the other thing that was behind the magazine was the reason I started WDWNT.com was I wanted to write. And news stories aren't really the kind of writing I had in mind. Little blurbs like, hey, you can mobile order at Tomorrowland Terrace, or they're remodeling this bus stop. Those weren't the things I was thinking about. Don't get me wrong, I love providing people with information and news, and I love that. But I really at some point wanted to write like nice long features like that. And so it was fun to do a couple of them for there. And still very rarely I get to do a fun piece on WDWNT.com, but the magazine was kind of an outlet to finally do a little bit of the writing I think I wanted to do. But you got to remember, writing like that takes a lot more work than a news story. A news story, you have the information, you make a couple paragraphs, you put a picture in, and it's done. And sometimes you put the word breaking. But otherwise, the article, especially 5,000 words somewhere in that zone, it's a lot.
I think I did more research for the Epcot history issue, which was, I think, our last issue. And I was doing a history of all the post shows. I did more research for that than I did for almost any paper in law school. I mean, because there's just so much detail in those things we wanted to put out. And I think those long form articles and getting people to commit to them, that was really hard. And that was what I was noticing when I took over those meetings at the end, trying to get people to do those for the site. And since we didn't have that same kind of set schedule we did for the magazine, that
if you don't have a schedule to put people on, they just drift away.
Off. And the other thing I did a lot of was I don't know if they all got published, but I did a few movie reviews. I know John Carter was one of them for the magazine before we did them on the site. And
they really are a time capsule, aren't they?
But they were so. By the time that came out, Carter was probably already out of theaters. So that was doing timely articles wasn't great for the magazine, and I'm glad at least that those kind of longer form timely articles we do them on the site now.
Yeah, I think there was that realization at the end that everybody just didn't have time anymore. I think that was like Patty was taking longer to put them together. The writers were taking longer to write articles. People were taking longer to edit, and people were vanishing. And I think that was kind of the sign that, all right, this may not be something we can keep doing. And knowing that money was never, well, we didn't think at that time money was ever going to come of anything we were doing. We just didn't seem like any way to keep it going, which was sad. But how many issues? How long did we end up going?
19 issues.
19. Wow, that's insane. We almost went 2 years. It's crazy.
Why didn't we put out a 20th? We just stopped at 19.
Because you probably were like, I can't do this anymore.
Probably what.
I vaguely remember meetings towards the end where Patty was burnt out. Patty's like, there's no one helping me do this. Like, what are we gonna
Definitely
do?
was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we knew even then, like obviously we knew the focus was the website. And by that point we're talking, what is it? It's fall of 2012. You know, things are changing. I was gonna move soon and I knew that. And we were in a very different place in fall of 2012 than we were in January of 11. And so, yeah. And I thought some people would keep writing for the website, but for the most part, they did not. So
No, a handful, but that's it.
I think we had a few articles from like one or two people, and then they all went away. And then of course, those of you who are still here went on to do other things. You know, David with the podcast and Ron with See Relate, the parades and things of that sort, and Patty obviously with anything technical. So yeah,
and Ben with whatever we needed Ben for.
Yeah. Why not Ben, right? So I want to again open the floor. Any other remaining memories or thoughts on the magazine, on what we did with that? I personally feel like we accomplished something. I think we changed the game a lot. I noticed the other magazines out there had we put up a bit of a fight. We definitely hurt people's numbers, which may have been Tom's goal in the end. But
yeah,
and I think that was my driving force. I think I won't lie. I probably went into those meetings and I believe I said things to the effect of, we're going to do a better job without paying people. We're going to put together a better product than these other people are that they're charging for.
Right, and we're not going to charge.
And it was kind of just to prove a point, and also we wanted to do it, but and I think by the end we had proved our point. And again, no one really had time left. But again, I'll open the floor to any other memories or thoughts on WDWNT the magazine.
Or since also since we're doing this live, anybody in the chat have questions about the magazine? Feel free to ask. And here's your chance, and we'll answer them.
Yeah, we do a lot of good stuff around here, but I think the magazine might be the most professional looking thing, at least.
Absolutely,
it's the most professional looking thing. Yes, I think honestly, the Christmas podcast parade is the most professional thing ever.
Oh,
why are we? Yeah, the podcast parade's a lot of work. But the fact that you're comparing the thing where you've been cloned and you posed as a fake prospector and tried to kill me, and there's a talking wine bottle and a raccoon and a Muppet, comparing that to the magazine, I think might be a bit much.
I mean, the amount of work that goes into the parade is very comparable to the amount of work that went into that magazine.
They were actually the two things we put the most work into, without a doubt.
And I think it shows. I think it does show. I mean, the magazine is like when we started the magazine, I had subscribed to Laughing Place magazine, and I thought, this Laughing Place magazine is an absolute work of art. It's beautiful. The photography is gorgeous. You don't even have to read the articles. And I thought, this is what our magazine should be. And I think we got there in certain aspects of it. It was a really great looking piece of work. And
I think our writing was stronger, though. Like, I think Laughing Place still had us a little bit on this, and I think that a lot of that just because we had so much content to produce on a monthly basis that we had to, not go full art on everything. But I think our writing was... It was the combination. We had the writing and we had a good-looking magazine. And so, we knew how to, deliver on all fronts rather than choose one.
I would like to yet again praise Patty for that layout. There was much.
They were gorgeous.
It was so pretty.
And those covers, look at that first cover. I love that first cover with
all the covers looked really.
Well, you're just a fan of logo compilations.
Well, my baby's on the cover. So,
I think
you have other covers to show, Patty.
Yeah, I have. Let's see here, California.
What was that issue? Was that the California Adventure redo? Like, I don't.
Yeah, Goofy Sky School.
Oh, so that would have been summer of 11. Yeah.
Yeah, July 11.
Yeah.
Hatbox Ghost.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Look at
I'm
that.
pretty sure somebody emailed and yelled at us for using this picture.
We sure did.
Yeah, I feel like we got in trouble for that one.
We never changed it. Yeah, I remember that. I love that cover. And we did back covers too, didn't we? Where
Yeah.
Usually there's some. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
I love that. We put her on the back.
Uh-huh.
We always did cool things on the back too, which I
Yep.
love. That we didn't have to do advertising.
Yeah, they were fun. But
What is on the back?
Yeah,
Is there like
I
is there like
totally,
a quote from me
looking back-
on the back of the first one?
No, it's some like legal.
Oh, we had a legal thing. On
Legal mumbo jumbo.
All rights reserved. Any
Please don't sue us
redistribution
because
or
we're not making money on this.
You know what? It might be from the printer, that MagCloud, where you could order the issues.
Oh yeah.
But another thing I was thinking as we were talking too, none of us, I don't think anybody lived here at the time. So here in Orlando. So the fact that we could put these issues together and we have, well, this is concept art, but we have actual park photos and images that we use.
Still going like once a month. Let's not be ridiculous.
Was it once a month?
Once every other month. Whenever something happened, like Star Tours, I was there, and California. In California, we had Connor out there. I mean, we did have Disneyland locals too.
Yeah.
But I had photographers, so I think we ended up borrowing a lot of stuff that the photographers would shoot. Or in a lot of cases, I actually sent Zach and people like, hey, we're doing an article on this. Next time you go to whatever park, could you shoot a photo of something? So we did. Even people that weren't directly involved in the magazine ended up contributing photos and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a pretty well thought out operation. What issue is that? I don't think we saw that cover. The 40th.
40th.
Yeah.
But I forgot too. We like even the table of contents. Like
we turned the podcast segment into a countdown in there, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was the 40.
Is that
40? Yeah, it's the 40 biggest moments.
Yep.
And David, I believe, turned it into an article. I think that was.
Yeah, you're right. Forgotten about that.
Yeah.
That was really neat.
I think it'd be interesting to see if we could ever do this again. I have a real job now, so you'll find somebody else.
Oh, excuse me.
Go find somebody else.
Wow. Maybe we got a Kickstarter the magazine, right?
Maybe we could do like one a year.
That sounds terrible. It's going to be 800 pages. It's an annual.
Well,
WDWNT annual.
We'd have to hire all new people to write every year because they wouldn't stick around.
So like a book. We'll just do a yearbook every year.
Yeah, yearbook. Like Disney,
no one does that already.
Like Disney did that one year and then stopped doing it.
People do that. That exists.
That would be cool. I don't know why we're coming up with new ideas because we think of Tom already has too many.
That's what we always do. We just always come up with new things, and then we stop doing the old things, and then people complain that we stop doing the old things, right?
Yeah, like the podcast.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Chad, you should create a 20th issue for your 10th anniversary to close out the magazine and do a retrospective of the last 10 years.
Oh, wow. We could do what was the documentary?
Yeah.
Look back.
Yeah.
Maybe for 20 years.
Well, see if people volunteer to do it, sure. Otherwise, we got everybody. I think everybody's pretty busy at the moment. So.
Yeah, I'd love to write more long form articles. I had a lot of fun doing those. I have a few half finished ones.
Yeah.
That I'd still love to talk about. Like when I did the platinum package, I had this. It was ridiculously long. It was getting ridiculously long, and I never finished it. But I think it was something like 2,000 words before I got through the financial analyst part of it, before I started reviewing all the tours I did. I'd love to put that out, but now that that's not even a thing to do anymore, I don't even know if it's worth finishing.
Yeah. Platinum is gone.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I've got ideas. I've got a couple ideas for really in-depth, essentially research articles that I want to do. But, with the amount of stuff that Tom keeps me busy with, I don't have time for research.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir.
You know, we do have the website, and a tremendous amount of people read that, so you could
Yes,
always
they-
put things.
No,
online.
I fully intend to go
Yeah.
do these research articles when I have a free moment to do some research.
It's never gonna happen.
Well, you know,
I always have something up my sleeve.
yep. One day I'll learn to say no.
Nah. Anyone else? Any thoughts or memories on the magazine? No, I just want to say again. I think Jason said it. Actually, Ron said it, and then Jason tried to disprove it with something stupid. It was. I think it's the most professional looking thing we ever did. It was a fantastic publication. Like I honestly sat and read it, which is a big deal because by that point in time, I was so busy with everything here that I wasn't listening to Disneyland News Today every week anymore. Like I didn't have time to be completely involved in what everyone was doing, but the magazine every month. Like because I bought the physical copies the first couple months, I would always sit and actually read everybody else's stuff, and even later the digital form, always sit and read through and see what everybody was doing and give feedback, and I think that speaks a lot. If it was the one thing we were doing that I absolutely felt like I'm going to go through this and read everything and see it. I mean, especially when I wasn't finding time to look over what everybody else was doing. I think that's a big deal. So I think the magazine was one of the coolest things we've ever did, and I'd love to someday, if the cash flow is big enough and we could really legitimately hire people to do it, it would be a thing worth revisiting. But that depends if magazines even still exist in any form. By that point, we'll have to wait and see.
Did we tell people where they could find it right now if they wanted to go look?
MagCloud.
But yeah, they're all there. You could find it. You can download PDF.
They just search WDWNT on MagCloud. Will that bring it up?
Yep.
If there
there's
are
And the
iPad
PDFs are free. They don't have to pay anything.
right,
And
there's
there's a-
iPad apps for
Yeah,
people
there's
if
an
they
app.
want to read it on that from MagCloud.
Yeah.
And I think I'm downloading them all now, so I'll put them all the PDFs in one place, so we can put them on our hosting at some point if we want
Yep.
to.
Yeah. That'd be
idea.
good to have. I think I have them all somewhere. Where I don't know, but I'm sure I
Yep.
have them all.
I should have them too. I probably have original
Looks like you have
files.
most of the physical copies also.
Yeah, I actually, I don't think I have them all. I have a lot of them though.
Yeah. There were
So.
some issues you weren't proud enough of. You're just
Yeah,
like,
I guess.
Well, I noticed some of them were still like I didn't even take them out of the wrapper. So I have a few
Aw.
like over here. They're still
Archival
sealed.
copies.
Yeah, exactly.
mint
And I think
condition.
once I stopped like actually reading them, but I did read them because I put them together. But I didn't really read the whole finished piece. So yeah, I think that's when. Or maybe I do have them all. I don't know. I know too, if you guys are interested in ordering the actual printed copy, MagCloud sends out coupons. So I would always wait for the sale. I think they did like 20% off or something. So
Yeah, I remember
if
buying.
really-
I ordered all 6 on sale. The first 6. Yeah.
yeah, so if you're really dead set on getting like an actual printed copy, sign up for their email list and just wait. I'm sure the holiday just passed, so they probably ran something for 4th of July.
Yeah. And so you
So
guys know
that's
we don't get anything from that either.
No.
We're not
No.
pushing it to make money. All of the money you give them goes into printing that
And shipping it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really just for your enjoyment, not for our monetary prosperity. So it's really,
They
if you
are a
want
bit
them,
pricey.
you can get them.
How much
We
is
had
an
a
issue?
Yeah, they go from anywhere from about $10
It
to
depends on the pages.
I think issue 1 is like 20 because it's 70
There's so many
something.
pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
A
issue
couple-
4 is 1840.
A couple questions in the chat I want to answer. Someone asked, did the magazine come easy or was it hard? And that's a great question. That was something that I thought we should talk about, because it's not like any of us had ever done this before. Like none of us were publishers. None of us were journalists.
Yeah.
Except Tom.
Went to school for it at least. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't. Yeah.
No, but it still doesn't teach you how to run a magazine.
No, it doesn't teach you how to run a magazine. And so, like Patty had done a lot of graphics work, but she'd never put together a magazine before.
You know what I would really equate it to? The same way Walt took a bunch of animators and they somehow built a theme park. I think we had a lot of people that knew how to do a lot of different things, and it was the right group of people. I think David and Ron knew how to manage people. I think Patty knew how to do design and make the page layouts look great. We had a lot of people that knew how to write and knew the subject matter, and I think that just made it work. Yeah. I think that's what it was. It didn't matter that we didn't know how to run a magazine, because honestly, we weren't running the monetary side anyway, so it didn't matter. Yeah. But we had all the individual pieces, and with that, we were able to do it.
Yep, we pulled it together. We pulled together people's talents and was able to get something out of it that was more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think to answer their question, it was both easy and hard. It was easy to come up with ideas for articles. It was easy to come up with concepts for issues, but there's a huge gap between having the idea for an article and then being able to sit down and write 2,500 words on that specific subject. And that's where eventually we ran out of steam and energy and time to be able to put that effort into individual articles. And I'm sure Patty would say the same thing on the design elements. So there's still a ton of ideas, as you're hearing from this group out there, but just finding the time and energy to put it into written form is difficult. That's the hard part.
Yeah, I think the demand of having it every single month to try to beat out all our competition and still be free, I think is ultimately maybe what burnt us out.
But if we went quarterly, I don't think the interest would have been as high. I think it was the fact that we were
it was
consistent.
It certainly had an impact on the marketplace in terms of a monthly magazine of this quality, of this content, for free. That had the impact, I think, more than anything.
Yeah.
Jason, are there any other questions?
That was, I think one of the questions was, did we ever do a Figment cover? No, because after we got in trouble for the Mansion cover, we tried
did.
to not
I
get
mean,
in
there
trouble
was
anymore.
there was an Epcot anniversary issue, but I think Spaceship Earth is on that one.
Yeah, but so that was a photo we took.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I think there's a couple with logos. Like the Star Tours issue has the logo, but the rest were photographs. So unless there was a picture of Figment, but I don't recall ever.
I don't think
there was ever a reason to have Figment on the cover. No. So,
did anybody have any favorite articles that either they wrote or they read that they just really enjoyed?
I want to say one of the favorite. It wasn't an article as much as it was a column, the Ask Dave Smith column.
Oh yeah,
that was one of my favorites.
Because David Smith has the same name as Dave Smith, who had the Ask Dave Smith. Yeah, and that was. And I love that it had like a disclaimer, didn't it? That I'm not the Dave Smith. Yeah,
this is not the Dave Smith you're thinking of, right?
Fantastic! I forgot.
It was great. That was like my favorite part of the magazine.
See, that was the thing. Like, even though we were being professional, it still had that weird,
still fun
humor.
It still had the humor.
Like we're still a bunch of idiots,
right? And we still are 10 years later.
There you go.
Yeah, I think there are two articles that I really enjoyed writing. The first one was the Space Mountain history, the retrospective, because I was able to tie that into my own experience with attractions and roller coasters, and being able to dig into my own personal history with them, as well as the history of the attraction itself. I enjoyed being able to do that. And the other one, honestly, my favorite issue is absolutely issue 4 on Star Tours, because we looked back at the old Star Tours and its history. We looked forward to the adventure continues and what the new Star Tours meant to everybody. And just a great issue all the way around. Every article in that issue is fantastic.
I loved the theming the issues. That was my favorite, is when we sat down and was like, what are we doing next month? And we'd literally try to tie everything in, or as much as possible.
And we did a good job at it, too. Like,
and I liked those themed issues, because it felt like each issue like that felt like more of an event.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've always had I like the theatrical. I like to make things a bigger deal, in case you can't tell, by the 10-hour show we're doing. So I always thought that was cool when we had material like that. We're like, let's do a whole issue on Star Tours, or let's do a whole issue on Epcot, or Walt Disney World's 40th. That was my favorite, when we had those bigger months with like a cool theme like that. Anybody else? Nope. Nope. Ron, go ahead.
My first article was about a day hanging out with you. The first day we all met, I met you and a bunch of the other guys.
24-hour day?
Yeah, that was my first article, and that was definitely a good place to start from.
Yeah. No, the magazine was really something special, and again, it's one of those things where we knew we couldn't do it anymore, but it's one of those things that I'd love to someday, maybe. That's like a what's the, I don't know what the term is I'm trying to use here. It's a pipe dream. Yeah, exactly it. That's like the greatest pipe dream of WDWNT.com, is to do that. That and to buy a physical studio. Those are the two pipe dreams of WDWNT. For that video see or relate someday, right? Yeah. So with that, I think that's going to do it for our very first 10 for 10 discussion series. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your contributions, of course, on WDWNT, the magazine. And of course, if you want to check those out again, they are still on MagCloud. If you search for WDWNT, you'll find them there. They still exist. 19 issues we did, and it was a pretty great run. And a lot of people who worked on the magazine are still around, still doing things here at WDWNT. So still find people. But thank you all very much. That's going to do it for this first edition of the 10 for 10.